Hello everyone, it's Captain Sensible here, and Mr. Smelly's asked me to do another watch review because I know he's been getting interested in watches lately. I've seen the ones he's bought, a load of old rubbish from down the car boot sale, but never mind. So today we're going to be looking at this one. It's a Stratford watch, and this one was passed down to me from my great-grandfather, who actually flew as a fighter pilot in the Crimean War. Now you can see it's got a lovely dial there. It's in the Bauhaus style, and we've got a beautiful solid gold crown on this one. Lovely bezeling and polishing north to west and east to south, which is just the way I like it. Absolutely fantastic watch, extremely valuable, and this one normally stays back in the bank safe back in London. Excuse me if I'm a little bit bunged up, I've had a bit of a cold over the new year. And we can just see everything about this one. It's absolutely mint condition. It's been really well looked after, and I don't take it out of the safe very often. Excuse me, I'm just stifling a cold here. You haven't got a tissue, have you? Get us a tissue quick. I'm gonna.
Hello everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be having a look at my top 10 fragrances from the 1990s. Imagine our surprise when we woke up after that last day of 1989 to find that it was 1990 and the 1990s had begun. So, starting off, we're going to do it in chronological order. There might be a couple of honourable mentions at the end. We've got a real mixed bag of fragrances. So the 1990s, as I mentioned, and you probably know, came right after the 1980s. And of course, it's probably worth mentioning that two of the big fragrances that came out in the late 80s were Fahrenheit from Dior and Davidoff's Cool Water. And if you were around in the 90s, these were things that you smelled a lot because they came out, both of them, in 1988. And Cool Water, the fresh, aquatic, a bit like green Irish tweed, very fresh, ozonic kind of smell that was really prevalent on the streets and everywhere else in the 1990s. And Fahrenheit from 1988 had its real golden era of being worn in the 90s, a really powerful fragrance with violet leaf and a sort of petroleum accord, real fiery, manly, unique at the time fragrance. So you would have smelled those a lot in the 1990s, but I'm doing ones that were released in that decade. So let's get stuck into my favourites. It's my personal picks. I've left out some very big selling ones from the 90s, but these are the ones I own and like. Not everything I've got from the 90s. There are a couple that didn't quite make the list. Here's the ones that did. Number one then, it's going to be Chanel's Egoiste. 1990 saw the release of this one, and it actually in 1987 Bois Noir was released, and this was basically the same fragrance, which that one went away. They reissued the fragrance as Egoiste in 1990, and the previous one was only available in boutiques, so this was just a normal designer release, so we can count it as a 90s release. More importantly, what does it smell like? An opening which has, depending where you look, mandarin or tangerine. So there's a little bit of citrus element in this one, but it's not a citrus fragrance. The main thing you get in this is tremendous spiciness and woodiness, a really, really nice creamy sandalwood note, a lot of cinnamon in this one, and there's also ambrette seed and vanilla. And what we get is a very rich, woody, masculine, sophisticated, almost niche kind of smelling fragrance. Very, very complex, very deep, very dark, appropriate for winter wear. And would feel like it's going to suit a more mature gentleman now, or certainly someone when you're dressing up for a wedding or something like that. Big nights out for this one, or if you are the CEO of your company and just don't give a damn. Real ballsy, masculine fragrance, but you've got this sweetness and woodiness. Absolutely lovely stuff. Chanel Egoiste from 1990. Stood the test of time. You can still get it today, although it's a little bit less prevalent. You don't see it in all the stores, but it's still out there. Today's version smells absolutely great. Now for a much more obscure fragrance from 1990 also, it's Moschino Pour On with this amazing box. Lovely box on that one, and the bottle similarly ornate. So this fragrance is a really complex, again, sort of oriental, leathery, spicy fragrance. Some of the key notes in this one, there's an absolute ton of notes. Well, one of the surprise ones is coconut, but I don't pick up on that much. Main stuff that you're going to get in this one, leather. It's got a really creamy, kind of woody leather combination. I think there's some cinnamon in there. There's clary sage, I think. Let's check that. Is it clary sage or normal sage? As if I even know the difference in smell. Clary sage in this one, oak moss amber, styrax and benzoin. And what you get is a really complex, deep, seductive, woody, leathery fragrance. It looks back a little bit to 70s and 80s smells. Some people have compared it to Hermes Bellamy and Guerlain's Derby. Complex, rich, masculine, leathery, beautiful stuff. Very hard to find now, long discontinued. It's going to be expensive, probably, if you can find it, but I got mine for a lucky price that wasn't too bad. So Moschino pour Homme 1990, a real great of the decade that looked back really to the past, but it is rather complex and wonderful stuff. On a different track now, 1994 saw my favourite citrusy aquatic fragrance of the decade, and that is l'ISSEY pour Homme. So ISSEY Miyake's l'ISSEY pour Homme. A real classic. We can still get it today. Mine's the modern version. Keynote in this one is yuzu, a Japanese citrus type note. No idea what yuzu on its own smells like. Some lemony bergamot mixture there with yuzu. An aquatic ozonic kind of accord in this one. Quite a lot of florals, I think water lily and that kind of thing. What you basically get is this really sharp, piercing kind of smell that arrests your nostrils, grabs you by the nostrils, and is very, very fresh and clean. And yet there's a little bit to it. But it's similar vein to things like Acqua di Gio, which I've decided didn't quite make my list, and maybe even CK1, the unisex scent of that decade. So the decade had a lot of these kind of aquatic fragrances. That was a trend that came out in the 1990s. Aquatic, fresh, citrusy fragrances. And this is one of the absolute best and my favourite that stood the test of time. Really, really lovely stuff. ISSEY Miyake, l'ISSEY. Loads of flankers, but the original for me, still the best. I failed to do it in strict chronological order. Never mind. We'll go back to 1991 for a moment. I don't want to leave this one out. And this is VERSACE versus UOMO. Very unusual bottle and an interesting box there. Again, discontinued and a little bit tricky to find. With this one, it's sort of a weird take on a barbershop type fragrance. Loads of lavender, very nicely done lavender in this one, combined with tonka and a really nice fresh citrus note in the opening, almost a kind of blueberry feel I get. Maybe it's just the bottle of the things, or blueberries mixed with lavender and giving a really unique smell. And again, if you can find this one, sometimes it's not massively highly priced. I got mine quite cheaply. Brilliant, brilliant fragrance. VERSACE versus UOMO from 1991. Unfortunately, now sadly discontinued, but it's superb stuff. So you can find that one, well worth trying. One of the best from VERSACE, and I prefer this over the Dreamer that came out in 1996. That one hasn't made my personal list. One of the best VERSACE fragrances ever, arguably. Moving forward now, 1994, we had l'ISSEY, but we had another great citrusy fragrance, but one that's not aquatic and is very, very different and unique. It's one of Max Forti's fragrances, and it is Dolce & Gabbana pour Homme. I have the original Italian vintage version here. This one, again, does, as so many do, open with a lovely citrus burst. You've got, I think, lemon, lime, all the usual citrusy stuff in there, but they're really nicely done. They smell pretty natural. The interesting thing in this one is we've got some quite nice herbal aromatic stuff in there, because we've got sage, there's also cardamom and pepper, and the key thing is we have this rather lovely fresh tobacco leaf accord that mixes in with the citrus stuff to give this its unique characteristic. It has to be smelled to be understood. You can try today's one on the shelves and it will give you a flavour of it, but the old one is better. A really, really classy, elegant, all-round scent, good for springtime, and a good performer. Performance on the ones I've mentioned so far, by the way, all of them strong performers, except maybe some people say today's version of l'ISSEY not so great, but I find it to be quite good. So far, all of them strong performers. EGOISTE maybe a bit more of a beast mode one. Moschino pour Homme, just decent, and VERSACE versus just decent. This one, pretty good as well. Some people say it's got amazing performance. I find it just quite good. Nothing spectacular, but a lovely, lovely, exquisite, delicate fragrance. Something completely different now. Such variety in this decade. Of course, one of the titans of the decade was this one, and this is Jean-Paul Gaultier's Le Mal. So, the incredible bottle. It gives us a real, at the time, was a really shocking design for a fragrance bottle. This is a sort of vintage version with the sticker on the bottom, so it's an older version. Today's are sadly a little bit neutered, unlike our friend here, who's clearly well and truly intact. So most people say you've got to seek out an older one. I think if there's a sticker on the bottom, it means it's older. This is an early 2000s one. I'm not an aficionado on the vintage issue on this one. Lovely lavender combined with mint. Lots of vanilla, a really kind of sweet combination of some barbershop elements, but a kind of neo-barbershop smell, and the lavender, mint, a lot of sweetness, definitely some vanilla in this one. And there's tonka bean. It's described as an oriental fougere, and that's not a bad way of describing it, a mixture between the fougere style and more sweet and spicy oriental fragrance. Martin? Francis Kurkdjian, the perfumier behind this one, and he did an amazing job with a really iconic fragrance from this decade. Fantastic performance on my old bottle, really lasts for ages. Kind of a synthetic smell, very recognisable, was huge in the kind of gay club scene apparently in that decade. And to me, when it came out, I was alive in the 90s and old enough to sort of know what was going on. And I think I got a bottle in around 99, 2000. It seemed a little bit effeminate to me at the time. And of course with the bottle and Jean Paul Gaultier, it seemed like this not very masculine scent, but when you smell it today, it just smells like a brilliant, classy, excellent fragrance, and suitable for all occasions. Just watch out, it's very recognisable, so people will smell it and it just, you know that smell, La Mal, which is in a way the sign of class, but you may not want to smell so recognisable. Moving on then, that year also saw another brilliant fragrance release, this time from the house of Yves Saint Laurent, and this is OPIUM pour Homme. So this one came out in 1995. I've got the old Eau de Parfum version here. Important notes on this one: bourbon vanilla, star anise and cassis or blackcurrant. Really, really seductive, rich. The name Opium is quite a good name for this fragrance. It's seductive. Dark, it's rich, it's a little bit sweet, and it's got this real nighttime element. If you were going into some kind of drug den somewhere in an exotic location and it was all kind of a bit nice, which it wouldn't be really, but if you think of a kind of good glamorized version of that, this is maybe what some of the people there might smell like, and it really is a beautiful, beautiful smell. Very rich, very powerful, extreme beast mode on this one. And if you can find an old vintage bottle, great. The Eau de Toilette of today, it also gives you many of the same things. This one just a tad richer and deeper than the modern Eau de Toilette, and I haven't tried the modern version of the Eau de Parfum. Beautiful, intoxicating, rich, sweet, blackcurrant and vanilla type scent with some Atlas cedarwood as well. Superb stuff from the 90s there. Okay, so what have we had now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 3 to go. 1998. Just got this bottle. Very excited to get it. JAIPUR Homme from Boucheron. To me, this one smells like baby powder mixed with vanilla. To give a really simple description. You've got cinnamon in this one. There's lemon and lime and bergamot in the opening, so there's lots of citrus notes in the opening, but then there's this real kind of powdery accord about this scent. There's patchouli as well, giving it a little bit of depth and richness and masculinity as well. A great performer and a really spicy exotic scent. The cinnamon combining really nicely with the patchouli in the base, the lemon in the top and the vanilla note to give this kind of musky, barbish. It's got a kind of clean, fresh smell, but a lot of sweetness added in there. Actually reminds me a little bit of Histoire de Parfum 1725, another barbershop with a ton of vanilla. I think that one might have almond in there as well. This one doesn't, but really lovely, spicy stuff. A real cheapie. You can get this for about £30 for 100ml in the UK. Similar prices around the world. Great performance so far on me. I smelled it on my clothes the next day, and it really lasts well and it creates a really great aura. I haven't tried the EDP, hoping to soon and do a comparison, but this one does stand the test of time as a great fragrance, maybe for the more mature gentleman, as some of the ones I've mentioned are, but I would say Dolce & Gabbana's Pour Homme is definitely an all-rounder. Young people need not fear that one. Nothing really retro about that one. L'Odyssée, similarly, anyone can wear that one. This one you've got to be a little bit dressed up or feeling a bit grown up, probably, so young people beware of blind buying that one. Next up, another great all-rounder. This one's sadly really hard to get now, and it's Dolce & Gabbana's Masculine. So Masculine from Dolce & Gabbana came out right at the end of the decade, 1999. Didn't last a huge amount of time on the shelves. I don't think it was a huge commercial success, but I like it. It's really good. It's a citrus aromatic fragrance with a ton of aromatics, loads of kind of spicy herbal notes in there, combined with a lovely, lovely bright citrus opening and some masculine woody elements in the base. So we've got petitgrain as well as the other obvious citrus stuff. There's teak wood, vetiver, fig leaf and mint and clary sage in this one. So quite complex actually. Smells a little bit synthetic. Not everyone loves this one. Hard to find, but a brilliant citrus aromatic in my opinion. I have tried Dolce & Gabbana by Man, but it's very expensive to get that one. This one not quite so much, and because I've got this, I've given this one the place in the top 10. They're both very good. By Man's also great, but this is different. More of a citrus aromatic than that one. That one's got more of a barbershop lavender kind of creamy sandalwood feel. Beautiful stuff. Dolce & Gabbana Masculine, sadly a little bit underrated and forgotten, but that means you might get a bottle without paying the absolute earth. And for me, great release right at the end of the 1990s. So not one that you would smell much in that decade, but into the 2000s. A few people in the know probably were wearing it. Last but by no means least, of course we had the gourmand thing coming in the 90s. I could have mentioned Amen from Thierry Mugler. I think that was 96 that came out. Don't happen to care for that one too much myself. So my favourite gourmand from the 90s came out right at the end. It's the butt plug. It's ROCHAS Man from the house of ROCHAS. A lovely, safe kind of gourmand fragrance. It's sweet, but it's fresh in a way at the same time. It's got coffee and mocha as two of the notes. There's a kind of raspberry note in there, certainly some vanilla, and a nice kind of general musky accord that runs through this one and keeps it a little bit masculine. Maurice Roussel was the man behind this one, and he also did one of my other favourites, Bogart Prom. So it's seductive, it's smooth, it's sexy, it's classy, it's understated. It doesn't actually perform terribly strongly, I don't think, so beware if you want a strong performer. Not so much this one, probably more of a daytime scent for autumn and winter when you want a nice cosy, cuddly, huggable smell, but nothing too outrageously obvious. Lovely, beautiful scent, bit synthetic smelling, but it's a good synthetic kind of smell. And just go, you can wear that almost all year round apart from in the royal high heat, and so different to all the others I mentioned. So lovely stuff. ROCHAS Man, still popular on our shelves today, and again you can get that for really cheap prices today. This was £20 for 50ml, and similar prices around the world apply. So those were my top 10 from the 90s. I haven't quite finished though yet. A couple of honourable mentions. Didn't put anything by Valentino in the list, but they had two kind of bookending the 90s that are worthy of your attention. Valentino Vendetta, with a spectacular bottle and the brilliant name. It conjures up the image of some kind of mafia vendetta. And here is the box. A leathery fougere, really, really nice stuff, old school smell. If you can find a bottle for a reasonable price, you might want to check that one out. And right at the end of the decade, they gave us Very Valentino, a lovely combination of sandalwood and tobacco. Again, both those, I haven't worn them tons, I'm still getting to know them, so I didn't give them official top 10 status, but they were two good ones from the house of Valentino in the 90s. And one more honourable mention that I almost forgot till I was editing the video, and it's kind of more than an honourable mention because it probably would make most people's top 10 90s list who've experienced this fragrance. It's Givenchy INSENSE, which I only have the aftershave lotion. Maybe that's why it's sat a little bit unloved in my drawer. Amazing fragrance, really floral fragrance from the 1993. Wasn't a commercial success, but hugely regarded by fragrance reviewers and enthusiasts. So those are my top 10 picks. Let me know what you thought of them. Let me know what you think about ones that I should have put in that I left out, some of your favourites I'm sure. And feel free to have a civilised debate in the comments below. I'll try and answer as many as I can. Thanks ever so much for watching. Remember, whatever we're doing in life, let's project. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.